give us your name and address.
Hi, good evening. My name is Moin Khwaja Panchwani. I go by Mike. I run a small grocery store at 4243 Jackson Road, Griffin. I would like to talk about alcohol ordinance. On May 20th, 2014, I sent a petition to the commissioners, and on this, I was asking that we need to reduce our distances from door to door from 300 feet to 150 feet. And this petition on this, we are small businesses. We are backbone of the economy. We sustain lots of jobs over here. And in this competitive world, the big corporations are driving us out. And we are trying to save jobs in the local community, provide jobs to the local people. And by doing this, it would significantly increase your tax revenue in the forms of like inventory taxes, sales taxes, the license fees. So I would like you guys to consider my petition to reduce distance from 300 to 150 feet from door to door.
Mr. Wilson, what would the process be? Would that be something that would be initiated by a member of the Board of Commissioners if there was a desire to do that, or is?
Yes, sir. The county commissioners would have to ask the county attorney to adopt a change in the ordinance that would affect not only his property, but any property in Spalding County applying for an alcoholic beverage license. It would reduce the requirements overall from, is it 300 now?
300 to 150 feet.
To 100 feet.
And that's good for the county, because lots of businesses, because the petition I sent has like hundreds of people that signed it, even lots of the small business owners, they signed it too, because they want to benefit from this motion too. And that is good for this county, plus good for the, for the business people too.
Well, an understanding that a lot of work went into the preparation of the ordinance, and it took a lot of time and everything like that, but I mean, we have had ordinances amended before, but that's, again, that's something that a member of the board would have to initiate at some point in time, and, you know.
I have lots of people, like I sent a petition with lots of people, they asking for it. There's a whole community, they signed it, and I sent it, I gave it to Mr. Wilson, and I think he emailed it to you guys.
Yes.
You should consider those people. They are like, our money is going to the Handy County. This is Spalding County's money, which is people, they are driving towards like a local school to buy beer and wine. So it's our money which is going over there. And people, they are like, why they have to drive all the way down there when we have stores right next to their house. And this store used to have beer and wine license too. It's not that this store didn't have beer and wine license, it used to have beer and wine license. So there is no new dwellings around it or nothing like a new houses over there. You can either grandfather it or you can just make it beneficial for everybody. That's what I'm asking for. Because it's gonna significant increase in tax revenue too. You guys know about it.
Can it be grandfathered seeing it was beer license there when it was under previous ownership?
The way the ordinance is written, I do not think that can happen.
Their license lapsed, so
Oh, they lapsed.
when a license lapses, the grandfathering goes away. I believe Chad can comment more on this, but this was brought before the board at the May 19th extraordinary session. Ms. Sharon Chatham brought the petition to you at that time, and the consensus of the board at that meeting was that there was none of the board members thought at that time that the ordinance should be changed, but that was in May the 19th, earlier this year. But because their license had expired, they lost the grandfathering, and that is why he can't get a license. He has to come under the new ordinance.
We researched the records here. There hasn't been an alcohol license on that property for the better part of 20 plus years that we can locate. So it really isn't so much as losing a grandfathering status as there was just never really a status established under obviously the current ordinance, but also the ordinance that preceded that one. So it's just as if starting it afresh. That's just how y'all would have to consider it. So they would have to comply with the current date.
It's not a church yet.
There is no church, there is no schools. There is no church around it, there is no schools around it. And it's just as a residence. And I'm not talking about just my store, I'm talking about everybody else too. It's
Well, that's an isolated part of the county right there. There's no other stores around. That's the thing about it. There's nothing else. In that part, they either gonna go to Henry County, they gotta come all the way back into town. You know, that's,
Even the states of Georgia, they did it, they changed their laws too, from churches and schools, even they cut it down half. If you read the new laws of the state of Georgia versus the old laws of the state of Georgia, they cut down their alcohol licenses, the distances too. We did make so many change, like Sunday sales and everything, but we did not look this one, this clause, like 300 feet. We should have looked at that one too.
Well, the only thing we can do, because it is county law, county ordinance, you know, our hands are tied unless somebody wants to change it. Now, we can't ask the county attorney to compare our current ordinance to the state law, what may have changed in the state law, and bring that information back to us to see if any of the commissioners at that time want to look and make a change to the ordinance. But again, I mean, it's county law at this time, and it applies to every place in the county that either has or would like to have an alcohol ordinance. And we can't treat one any different than we do the others. You understand that. We would have to change the county
You have to
line.
understand all the community over there too. You should think about that all the communities live around that store. We should consider that too, I mean,
Right.
because they've been asking it. And I'm just gonna do it, like I'm gonna put down everybody's phone number over there, and I'm gonna tell them, just call this commissioners. Because I don't have anything like to do with it. They're people that get the license.
Right. Okay.
So please consider it. You don't have to like a,
All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Next person signed up is James Brooks. Brooks, if you would please give your name and address.
My name is James Brooks. I live at 1218 Rehoboth Church Road, Griffin, Georgia, 30234.
Thank you, sir.
Huh?
Thank you, sir.
All right. Here tonight, I want to talk about this airport. I've been noticing in the news and all, y'all got a break with the DOT and the others with the cost of the land. They're gonna drop it from 12 million to 6 million. So that'd be 3 million from the county, 3 million from the city, right?
Yeah, if they do the way it had been planned out or all the discussion, that's what it would be, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Right now, I think y'all giving, I don't know what y'all giving this year in the budget, the airport, around 125 to 150,000 a year, more or less.
Sounds about right.
And then we turn around and pay $90,000 for the walking track. On top of that, then we pay $35,000 for the helicopter pad out there. So we talking about almost $300,000 we're giving to the airport. We're getting zero from it. I look back, we ain't got a cent this year from it. We're going in the red out there. We're going in the red out there every year. Y'all give them $125,000, $150,000, we're still going to red. You know, what do you think a new airport's going to do? Y'all talking about, well, there ain't gonna be much expense to it all about the first 5 years. That's 5 years, somebody's got to pay the upkeep. And that's just the way I feel about it. I mean, right now, I wouldn't vote for it, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Next person signed up is Bishop D.C. Watson.
Good evening.
Name and address, please.
Bishop D.C. Watson from Life Tabernacle and Praise Church, 235 Bleecher Street in Griffin. And what I'm up here to ask is that we be allowed to give permanent status to our modular building that we've had there for the past 4 years. I sent to you all on June 2nd a copy of what we proposed for the complete use of that land there, but at the present time, we're asking that the modular building be given a permanent status. We have, upkept that building, tried to keep the area looking as nice as we possibly can to be a good neighbor in the community. In that modular building that we have been in for the last 4 years, we've had after-school programs in there, summer camp, which we're in the midst of a summer camp right now, fellowship services, food pantry, receptions, spiritual family counseling, as well as allow other ministries to use that modular building as well. And what we plan to do, if allowed to keep this building, is to refurbish it, put a new roof on it, put new flooring, new carpeting in it. But today, I'm just asking that that you allow us to have permanent status in that modular building, because it's set to come down next year.
All right, well, I know it's an item down on our agenda. We'll be discussing it at that time.
I understand that.
It's an item on our agenda under new business. I believe it's item number 2 under new business, and the
Okay.
board will decide at that time.
Oh, okay. Is that going to be tonight?
Yes, sir,
Oh,
tonight.
just
So I just hang around and
Yes, sir, hang around.
It won't be too long.
Hang around.
It's early on in the agenda, so,
thank you.
all right. Yes, sir, thank you.
I see you.
Mr. Joe McIntyre?
How y'all doing?
Your name and address, please.
My name is Joe McIntyre, 103 Jenkinsburg Road in Griffin.
All right, good, thanks, sir.
And what I want to bring up is, as y'all all know, I'm seeking 5th District County Commissioner seat. And I have a letter here from Mr. Gabe on January 28th saying he consulted with the attorneys, the county attorney, saw nothing in me seeking that seat, got no problems to arise. Right. And then I get the word that you want to change the ordinance where I will have to resign my job if I do win the election prior to taking office on January 1st. I don't think that's fair. I want to be treated fair. You don't change the rules in the middle of the game. And every one of y'all knew I was seeking that seat. So I'm asking you to reconsider from the letter I got on July 11th. Can I show it to you?
They got a copy.
We got a copy of it, yes, sir.
And I'd appreciate it, if you, I want to be treated fair, is all I ask. I have put a lot of time and a lot of money into this. I was never told that I could not take the seat. There's nowhere in the whole county ordinance. So I just don't think it's fair to me and the people that I spoke with to want to change the rules in the middle of the game. Regardless, next November, I'm retired. I'll have my time with the county. Regardless of the election, win or lose, and I appreciate your consideration of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. Consider approval of the minutes for the June 16, 2014 extraordinary meeting, the June 23, 2014 special call meeting, the June 26, 2014 special call meeting, the June 26, 2014 special call meeting, well, one was on bonds, one's on budget, the June 26, 2014 zoning public hearing, the June 26, 2014 special call meeting on SPLOST, July 3rd, 2014 Board of Commissioners SPLOST work session, and the July 14th, 2014 Board of Commissioners work session.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve as identified.
Second.
Have a motion and approval, motion and a second Motion by Commissioner Ray, second by Commissioner Miller for approval of all of the minutes. Any discussions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 4-0. Okay. Approval down to consent agenda. Consider approval on second reading amendment to UDO number A-14-04, Article 22B, TCC Tri-County Crossing Overlay District, amend boundaries of the TCC district. Consider these two separately.
If the board wishes to have discussion on the personnel ordinance, it needs to be removed from the consent agenda and placed under old business.
Anybody want to have any discussion concerning the personnel ordinance? Will they vote? Then you can proceed with the consent agenda.
I think that, seeing
Well, I
that
mean-
he was,
If you want to discuss it, we'll move it to the new
Okay,
business. and
okay.
then-
Move it to old business.
Move it to old business.
That's fine, that's
And then
fine.
we'll discuss it.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to consider approval on second reading of the Spalding County Personnel Ordinance to an item under old business. So the first item, Tri-County Overlay District.
Before we do that, Mr. Chair, move to
Okay.
remove make a motion to move the second reading of the Spalding County Personnel Ordinance from the consent agenda to old business.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to move the discussion on the personnel ordinance from consent agenda to old business. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. 4-0. All right. Next.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the consent agenda as identified, item 1 only.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Ray for approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 4-0. All right, old business. Consider approval on second reading of the Spalding County Personnel Ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, we have the personnel ordinance for second reading tonight. We as staff are recommending that the new ordinance become effective October 1st. The way the ordinance is currently drafted and would come before you without any language regarding, that we're recommending regarding that provision for county employees seeking elective office, it would, in fact, Mr. McIntyre, should he win the election, would have to resign under the way it is written now. If you wish to change that, you will need to add language as in your agenda, and it would then go back to first reading again and be second reading at the first meeting in August. But the way it's currently written, our attorneys have interpreted it that it would require Mr. McIntyre to resign should he be successful in tomorrow's election.
All right, Bart.
Okay. He started to run before this personnel ordinance was done. To me, I think that, I don't know how you want to put it, grandfathered in by the old rules. I don't have a problem with anybody after this, seeing he had already put his ballot in and to run, that he would be done. Only thing would be on any personnel matters or anything that had to do with personnel, he would not be able to vote on it. He'd have to rescind from it because he would still be a county employee. That's just my thought. I don't have a problem with him seeing he's retiring in November. That's got to do with his retirement. I just think it's kind of unfair that we did this. We didn't do it with the intentions of trying to eliminate him. It wasn't done, and it's already drawn up that he could be grandfathered in under the old part, but then he would have to retire. He would not be able to vote on any personnel matters that would involve personnel and being a county commissioner and working. To me, I don't think that would be, I don't think it'd be best for him, all the employees of the county, and us either.
Yes.
And I agree with what Bart is saying, but unfortunately, like it or not, there is a conflict of interest. And most of us do know that when we're put in the same situation like that, a lot of times we're removed out of the situation because of that. We could remove him and allow him not to vote on certain items, but just think about it. How many times do we actually vote on situations like this where we would need someone's vote? So it could pose as a problem. That's the only thing that I'm concerned with.
Mr. Wright?
And I agree, I hear both sides, but I agree that the conflict of interest is a rule here. And it's not just personnel. It would, anything that has to affect public works in the way of insurance, personnel actions, budget, all that would all be issues that he would have to recluse himself from. And doing that, I question how effective he would be for the voter, for the year that he would be if he wins, and if he was in office. Because he would not be able to vote on at least a third of the actions that come before this board. And that would be, I see as a conflict of interest, unfair to the voters, unfair to the employees of Spalding County. So I'll make a motion, unless you have something to say.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is, I thought I remembered us discussing this during our retreat earlier this year, and that, we did not want it to impact any of the people that were currently running for office. I agree with what you're saying as far as county operations. It will definitely impact it. It would make it difficult, particularly if Mr. McIntyre is successful, for him to be able to, there's a lot of things that he will just not be able to vote on. However, I do have concerns over what I feel like is the right thing to do, in that he made a good faith effort when he paid the money to run. He's gone through all this process, and we get to a month away from the election, and then it's like somebody saying you can't do it. But anyway, you will make a motion.
Well, I'd like to ask a question. Mr. Fortune, did the Attorney General, is there a saying, anything from the state Attorney General on this kind of situation?
The only thing, and I'm not sure it came from the Attorney General, is there's nothing in the law, but this is all prior to this is prior to, of course, any enactment on our part. There's nothing in the code or anything else which would prevent Mr. McIntyre from running for this position and getting elected. What you say about conflict of interest is certainly correct, regardless of our personnel ordinance. The conflict of interest issue is going to be always out there, and he would have to really be on his toes about that. But as far as there being any law which would prevent him from running, no. I mean, it's fine if he runs. So, I mean, there's nothing in the law that says he can't run. Now, you pass your personnel ordinance, then you're affecting him as an employee. So I'm not sure if I have answered your question.
Good. You answered good enough.
With that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Spalding County Personnel Ordinance for second reading.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the Spalding County Personnel Ordinance on second reading. Any discussion? Those in favor, please raise your hand. 2. Those opposed? 2. So what, there's no action?
It's nullity, nothing happened. It's still on the agenda. It'll come back up on your next agenda, next meeting.
Unless someone wants to make a
Unless somebody
different
wants to
motion.
make another motion. But if nobody makes another motion, it will pop back up on your next meeting.
Next meeting, come up on August 4th.
All right, if we were to make a motion that included the sentence that's in here that says if any Spalding County employee, it would affect changing it back to a first reading, so it would actually come back on second reading.
If you're going to make a substantive change today, it's going to go back for the first reading.
It's probably not going to get decided tonight.
No, but I mean, we'd be a step closer with this.
Anyway, call it a second.
Move to table.
Second.
Discussion on that, we have a motion and a second to table it. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 4-0. All right. Now to new business. Item 1, consider a request from Rita Mays for an application permit for a wedding to be held at 3345 Williams Road on August 2nd, 2014, from 2 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m.
Mr. Chairman, it has been reviewed, and as long as the railroad tracks, the cows, and her next door neighbor doesn't mind, it's recommended for approval from community development.
And there's a fee, okay.
Yes, fee was paid.
Make a motion.
Thanks.
Okay. Move to approve the application permit for Rita Mays for a wedding to be held at 3345 Williamson Road on August the 2nd, from 2 to 7 p.m.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Ray for approval, second by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. 4-0. Item 2, consider a request of Lime Tabernacle and Praise Church Incorporated to permit a temporary building as a permanent structure.
Mr. Jacobs is here to address that matter.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As y'all remember, this has been an item that's kind of been popping up periodically over time. Just kind of refresh your memory, go through a brief timeline. In October 2007, the Board of Commissioners voted some new commercial criteria into Appendix J in reference to temporary buildings, and specifically those that are in view from the right-of-way, and limits their use therein. In May of 2010, the board approved a temporary structure for Life Tabernacle for a period of 5 years, and this is the structure that Pastor Watson was referencing during his public comments. In July of 2013, there was a similar request that came before this body by Life Tabernacle to allow for the existing temporary structure that's out there that we're talking about tonight as well to be permanent, and then to add a second one. At that time, the board took no action on this request, which gets us to tonight. Pastor Watson is bringing before you a request to make that temporary structure permanent pursuant to the alternate design review guidelines spelled out in Appendix J. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Ray?
The last time this went before the Board of Appeals, what was their,
It's never gone to Board of Appeals, it's only been before,
only before us?
only before you.
And the last time it came before us, we basically didn't do anything.
Correct. There's a fairly extensive discussion with respect to ECA rules, things of that nature. Essentially, in a nutshell, what it boils down to is the direction that the board wants to take from a policy initiative in terms of commercial structures and how to utilize temporary buildings or not to utilize temporary buildings. So back in '07, the board took an initiative to enact a little bit stiffer regulations to push for nicer buildings from a commercial standpoint in Spalding County. And that's essentially what we're forcing at this time.
Whatever direction if we were to say approve this or whatever, that could impact a lot of other areas of the county. Correct?
It would open the door.
Set a real precedent, sir.
I think where we get hung up on it, 90% of the time we get these requests from churches. But just bear in mind that this is all encompassing for commercial entities. We treat churches, they fall under our commercial guidelines. But it would be, I don't know if you guys remember, a number of years ago, there was like a place called Catfish One that came in like a temporary building up on 1941 North. It's an extreme example, but things along those lines. It was businesses of the nature that I think got to the October 2007 ordinance.
I see here the staff recommendation is an extension of the current 5-year period for another 3 years.
That was from the previous. So staff has consistently on these requests recommended denial on those. But in an effort through questions, kind of a give and take with y'all, there's usually been like a temporary status that has been enacted by the board. We've consistently always recommended denial on this and keeping the deal.
So he's in the 4th year of the 5-year
Correct.
extension.
He's coming up on probably about 9-10 months left.
At the same time, wasn't there other restrictions placed on other churches that like wanted to use temporary
There's a church
facilities?
just up the road from this one that was afforded the same, had a modular building that was installed for Sunday school space. They were granted a 5-year temporary status.
Since the temporary status was given, has anything been done to the building, to the facility? Any
This current one,
corrections, improvements, that kind of thing?
each church, keeps them up nice and things of that nature. The idea was, my understanding in reading the minutes from back in 2010 when this took place, obviously it's an effort to help some of these churches that, while they were getting their finances together, to hopefully at one point in time build a permanent structure. Obviously the economy has done did what it did at that time, and I think it's been tough, but.
Could we put a stipulation in if we were to, I don't know if we can add to the existing now, but with a stipulation that there would be some additional work done on the buildings?
You definitely have the ability to add additional time to that temporary if that's what the board would choose to do. I wouldn't put a specific requirement to anything being done to those buildings. To me, it's an all or nothing. Either they can use the temporary building as a permanent status or they can't. That's kind of how, in my opinion, I would direct you guys to approach these.
I just have some concerns when you continually make a temporary building
Temporary.
temporary. How long can a temporary building be temporary?
It does get difficult for us to, we have to keep tracking things like that. Like I said, we've always consistently recommended non.
Jesus.
May I say something, sir? Oh,
Is it okay with members of the board? Sure. Yes, sir.
thank you. We have made improvements on that building. When we brought that building in, we had to put concrete pads and then cinder blocks, and then we bricked it, we blocked it all the way around. We stuck out the front of the building and painted it, and trimmed around the windows, painted a complete building, built a ADA ramp on the front and a porch on the back. Also, I have noticed that there are car dealerships all over Spalding County that have temporary buildings that have been there since I've been in Griffin. Are they any different than we are?
How much has your church been able to save for a permanent facility?
We've spent a lot of time upgrading this modular building that we're in. We spent quite a bit on that, almost $20,000 just getting that building. We're a small congregation, and right now, most of our focus is on, trying to get this building a permanent status. And the building that we're in, we put quite a bit, trying to keep it looking real nice. So we don't really have a whole lot, to answer your question, we don't really have a whole lot to say up for a permanent structure. But we do have a goal of getting one day. But even with that goal, and I don't know how many have ever rolled by and looked at that building or not, but even with that goal of getting a permanent structure, we wanted that modular building to be a part of that property, just like a lot of the car dealerships here in Griffin have. Most of their used car sales buildings are modular buildings. And they have been there for years and years and years. And I don't know what kind of status they have, but I haven't seen any come down in 5 years.
Can I ask Mr. Jacobs to check address that?
Many of those structures, spot on correct, those have